accidentally walked into a different world when I was a child by Ordinary Rough 7343. At beginning, I am not a native speaker. Oh, that's fun. Alright, hopefully this is, gonna be okay. I'd like to share something that stayed with me since childhood, an experience that quietly shaped the direction of my spiritual practice later in life. I had originally thought to post this in one of the paranormal subreddits, but after browsing a bit, I noticed most posts there involve ghost sightings or similar experiences. Perhaps the things my teacher and I have encountered, exorcisms and spirit cleansing, would be better suited for those sections, lol. But what I want to share here felt more like an accidental brush with another world. Back to the beginning. This happened when I was very young. My grandfather's birthday was in July. Each year on that day, relatives would travel from all over to gather and celebrate with him. That particular year, the weather was overcast and pleasantly cool. The adults were downstairs chatting or preparing lunch. I was in a great mood, partly because of the festive atmosphere, partly because the relatives had brought loads of snacks, lol. Being too young to follow the adults' conversations, I ran upstairs to the second floor. I bounced my way into the resting area and thought I'd take a few steps to the window to check if it was raining outside. But as I stepped forward just one step, the world changed. Yes, just one step, and everything around me shifted completely. I still remember it vividly. One moment I was in our home, and the next I was standing in the middle of a beautiful forest. Tall trees stretched upward, their branches covered in soft pink blossoms. A fine drizzle was falling, gentle, while petals floated silently down. Hello, Bob. The ground beneath me was soft and damp, not muddy, like the rain had just started. The whole scene felt still and hushed, carrying a kind of calm that sinks into your bones. Of course, this is how I understand it now. At the time, I mostly felt confused and startled. I had no idea how I got there. In a bit of a panic, I turned around and stepped back. I hope and pray I can go back home. And I did. I was back on the second floor of my house. Relieved but deeply curious, I turned again and took another step forward. Just like that, I was back in the forest of pink blossoms and soft rain. I could even feel the raindrops on my eyelashes. One more turn, one more step, and I returned home once more. As a child, I couldn't make sense of it all. In fact, I can't make sense of it until now. But the scene was as clear as if it were yesterday. The only evidence left behind was the wet mud stuck to the bottom of my shoes, which reminded me it might not have been an illusion. Many years later, I feel good when I think about the Grove of Flowers, not only because of its beauty and mystery, but because when I think about it, I can recall the days when my grandfather was still alive. My parents were still young and strong, although they still don't consider themselves old, lol. My relatives hadn't yet gone off on their own because of their work and life, and those days were carefree, simple, and pure. Those days were, he repeated it. That seemed like a blessed encounter in my childhood. It's properly sealed in the depths of my memory. That single moment felt like a hidden gift from childhood, a quiet blessing sealed deep in memory. When I grew older, I tried to analyze the experience more logically and considered a few possibilities. Maybe it was just a child's imagination or false memory. I grew up with an excellent memory, remembering things relatively early, even from when I was 2 or 3 years old, not to mention that I was in school by then, and I distinctly remember my mother coming upstairs later and scolded me for tracking mud all over the clean floor. 2. Could the mud have come from courtyard? That also seems unlikely. It was a cool, cloudy morning, not raining, and I hadn't been outside, so where would the wet soil have come from? 3. If the memory is real, later in life I came across writings in Taoist text about the 36 heavenly caves and 72 blessed lands. These are said to be sacred cultivation realms hidden within certain mountains and regions, visible to ordinary people only as landscapes, but in truth existing on another dimensional layer. Only those with the right karma or spiritual alignment could enter. A Taoist priestess told me some adepts live in mountain caves for decades. To outsiders, these caves appeared narrow and desolate, but in truth, this space has long been transformed by inner alchemy. What seems like a stone crevice may actually be an entire small world, a spiritual realm unto itself. The joy of such cultivation is invisible to the casual eye. Looking back now, perhaps I stumbled by sheer coincidence into one such place, and by some unknown grace I found my way back unharmed. I was just a child then, frightened and too timid to explore further. I still regret it, but I also understand such things cannot be forced. As the saying goes, timing, fate, and alignment of the path. Perhaps it is that experience buried deep in my heart now I practice the direction of exploration is also naturally towards space-time dimensions, other worlds and other directions to explore, perhaps in order to re-encounter the pink forest rain or simply to relive that pure still moment from childhood. Wow. Um, yeah, I feel like that's pretty much what I'm doing with this channel. We're exploring different like timelines and stuff. It's all very interesting. The different universes. So we are just reading Reddit. That was on. We're on the Experiencers subreddit, which gets kind of wild. It really does. But I have this search term in it. It's called stuck. I'm just searching stuck in an alternate. So that could be like alternate reality, alternate timeline, alternate universe, like the title. Okay. Alright. Yeah, it's good, Bob. It's good. How's your day? I shifted timelines, ? By Hello World MSK. I woke up today to my husband saying it's almost 10 a.m. Last night he told me he'll work from home today. That means no need to rush in the morning. I got up and prepared breakfast at a leisurely pace. Did everything according to our usual morning routine. Then when I went back to the bedroom, he was suddenly in a hurry. He was complaining about it being 8 a.m. already. I was very confused. He laughed a little. "Don't you remember? I'm going to the office today," he said. "It's just a small thing, but it left me very disorientated. I tried so hard to remember if I took my pills today, but I couldn't. I did a random number generator while concentrating on the question, should I take them now? Question mark. Odd numbers for yes, even for no. I got 2, 4, 6 in a row, so I guess that settles it. Thankfully, it's not a huge change, so I'll just have to roll with it. Have any of you experienced something similar? Do you know what caused it? On a side note, I pulled an oracle cards and it said, "You're between two worlds. Just stay calm and be curious. LOL." So I bet the comments on this will be kind of spicy here. This one, I think the major timeline shift was around 12/31/2019. I think that some of us swap timelines more than others. Even though the last season of Umbrella Academy wasn't great, it was pretty spot on with alternate timelines converging. I also think there is such thing as timeline sickness, increased headaches and body aches, nausea, dizziness. I've been to the doctor and all my numbers look good. I've had tests and scans thinking something was wrong. They haven't found anything. I'll have days that I can barely get up and I have to lay back down because I'm not sure if I can drive. I have an impeccable memory, but there's times I have to check, did that happen in this timeline? One time here's another comment. One time I was out of body. I felt like I was in between timelines and I was able to perceive someone that was exactly like me and was doing the exact same routine I used to do at home, and I believe it was me but from a different timeline. This multiverse is crazy. Here's another one. I've been experiencing something similar. I asked for ET to contact me in the car during a weekend away. When my aftershave I specifically went back to the house to go get and put in my bag was no longer in my bag. I get back a couple days later and it's on my drawer where it usually is. Ooh, that's a spooky one. Here's another one. I meditated recently and saw a dial. It was my body in the center like a CAT scan, and then a yellow gold orb at the top right corner and magneto orb at the bottom left. Something happened where they turned and moved positions, and I felt a major shift. It felt like a different world. I wasn't sure what to make of it. I went back into meditation and shifted it back immediately. Felt the world suffering, so I tried to shift it back. I think I was successful in moving it again and have tried since. I don't know where I left it at, but after the second time it won't shift again. It appears jammed and stays stuck. Here's a quote by Einstein, apparently. For those of us who believe in physics, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. That's trippy. Here's another one. Talking to a guy I know, he was saying he drives from home to a location to play volleyball. It is 70 miles from his house. It normally takes 1 plus 45, I'm guessing 1 hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours and 20 minutes, depending on traffic. He has driven this path many times. He texted his wife when he left his driveway. He parked at the facility and checked the time. Then he called his wife and asked her what time he left. She told him the same time that he thought he had left. Then he told her he was in the parking lot of the facility. She told him that was impossible. He agreed. It had taken him 45 minutes to get to the VB volleyball facility. He did not speed, driving the same speeds he always did, and he experienced typical traffic. He then talked to a friend of his who drives professionally, like for UPS or something like that. He told him what happened. His friend said something similar to that had happened to him about 7 times. Wow. I wonder if that's like happened to me and I just didn't know. Hey, what's good? Melanie the baddie. Alright, let's read one more story. Wow. This is just, yeah, some of these like comments are really wild. The iterations of resets have been increasing incrementally since 2020. Look up Trump time travel theory. I've never heard of that. How the Orsini family is related to Rockefellers. I don't know the Orsini family. And Rothschilds. Learn about our planet's astrology as we just entered the 2,000-year period of Aquarius. Hermetic teachings, the Great Reset theory. Learn about Tartaria, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, and the peak of the Viking era, and then combine it all to see what they are doing to us. All is out in the open for those whom are able to see. What the heck? He did not elaborate, unfortunately. That guy was going off, though. Let's do this one. Story, My Strangest Childhood Experience. Psychic Phenomena by Numerous Screen 76. Hello, it's good to see you today. Thank you for checking out my post. Normally I would be forthcoming and open about myself, but this particular story is, well, this is my deepest childhood secret. I have been holding on to the strangest, most unbelievable experience in my entire life, and honestly, I don't really know what to make of it anymore. Growing up, I thought I understood what happened to me, but as these things often do in my adult life, I have been reevaluating these strange and otherworldly memories with a critical eye. To tell this story, I preferred to make an alternate account that is untraceable to my primary Reddit account because, well, let's just be blunt here. Stories like this destroy a person's credibility and reputation. The last thing someone wants to see from someone who seems logical, rational, and in fair mind is a story that is incredibly strange and unprovable, even from a young age. I have prided myself on my ability to learn and grow and understand things rationally and logically. I am the most stubborn person I know, to the point where if I had not had these experiences, I would be one of those people who would call you a liar to your face. I am the first to be skeptical and the last to believe something with blind faith, which is why this story has been so hard to tell for so long. Recently, though, certain events in the world have made me realize that perhaps I am not alone after all. Maybe there are others who not only could empathize with me, but actually help me understand what it is that happened to me all those years ago, or at least give me some varying perspectives on it. I had this idea after posting a few successful Reddit posts on our UFO about the recent UFO sightings at the time. I was in the middle of some other research entirely when all of a sudden news of strange drones over New Jersey were painted all across social media. As a lifelong wannabe believer and skeptic, I jumped at the opportunity to dive into the current events. I documented my findings and found that I was actually able to share my thoughts with others in a way that was accessible and helped me understand more too. That process, which helped me heal from some of the anxiety and fear stemming from lack of control over the situation, inspired me to finally open up about this to you all. The notorious Reddit hive mind to finally unpack this memory. Sorry. That's been held close to my chest for my entire life. For the sake of the story and to keep my own identity private, I will relay the crucial details of the story, but I will fudge things like my hometown. I will, however, be forthcoming about my age now and my age at the time because I wonder if that does have something to do with the event itself. I don't really know what to expect from this, so here it goes. Please be nice, lol. I was born in Huntsville, Alabama, as the first son of a struggling family. My childhood was happy for the most part, and I had two loving parents and a sibling who was slightly younger than I am. At the time of the event, I was either 6 or 7, young enough for the details to be fuzzy and unimportant, but old enough to clearly remember that day in particular. My family was Christian, and in Alabama, one of the most popular denominations is the Baptist Church, which we attended. Even in the small town in which I grew up, which had a population of only a few thousand people, there were churches on every street corner. It's no surprise then that I found myself in church in my earliest years. Along with all of my friends and family, I remember hearing the gospel for the first time, and it made total sense to me. Well, duh, I thought, of course there's a God and He loves us. I accepted Jesus into my heart and was baptized publicly in front of all my friends and family. In the weeks that followed, I experienced the most perfect bliss. I was saved. I was going to heaven to be reunited with God. My whole life felt like a roller coaster ride that would eventually lead to perfection, to ultimate peace and happiness. That's not to say I was a normal kid. Either my sibling and I fought all the time. Of course, she being a few years younger than I was, and not at all interested in the things I was, so we butted heads perpetually. All was pretty good for a while. True salvation. I remember exactly what prompted my parents to send me to my room in punishment one day. Not long after the baptism, I had done something to either offend my sister's feelings or hurt her, and was scolded accordingly. However, what happened next changed my life forever. I remember my mom and dad standing in the doorway whilst I sat on my bed. Whilst I sat on my bed. of us upset at the situation, and then she said the words that still haunt me to this day. A real Christian would never have done that. I was shocked and confused. I felt like I had just been shot in the chest. What did she just say? Haley, my dad exclaimed. It wasn't often he used my mother's name like that, which scared me even more. You can't say that. It'll make him question and doubt his faith. An argument erupted in the doorway, which quickly shut, leaving me alone in the room. I could hear them arguing dimly through the walls of my childhood home, but all I could think about was what my mother had said. I was confused. How the heck did my actions disqualify me from being a real Christian? I assumed, like every other Baptist Christian, that salvation wasn't predicated on one's own actions. I had heard that time and time again in church as a way of explaining the gospel, after all. But there, then, in that circumstance, my mother's words hit closer than any preacher ever could. For the first time since that baptism, I was a horrible lead-filled emotion. Doubt. I cried as kids often do when they're in trouble, but I remember weeping not just for the situation I found myself in, but I wept as I realized my salvation had been utterly, completely destroyed by my actions. She's right, I cried. I'm not a Christian at all. I'm a horrible person. Someone to catch me. An hour later, having cried until I couldn't anymore, I just laid there on my bed. About that bed, by the way, I was a very short kid all my life, and very conscious of it too. I had a bed which sat up much taller than other beds, because it also doubled as dresser drawers. Beneath my mattress, built into the longest size of the children's bed, were two rows of drawers laid out 3 wide. To get on top of the bed, I could climb up the side using the handles and drawer edges as a rock climber might climb a cliff face. However, my mother was afraid I would break them, so she got me a small wooden box upon which was painted a sailboat. My whole room was filled with sailboats and water, which my mother painted herself before I was born. So the stepping stool fit nicely. She's always loved the beach and the ocean. As I laid there face down on the bed, propped up on my left elbow and my right arm hanging over the edge, all I could do was stare off into space. I remember replaying the moment over and over again in my head, in my mind, in that peaceful, quiet space after the weeping, trying to understand what just happened. I just laid there looking over the edge of my bed, staring at my shoes like they were some kind of face, like the holes of the shoes were two great black eyes staring right back at me. Slowly but surely I felt my body ease, relax, and begin to drift off into the twilight that precedes sleep. My eyes grew heavy, closing by the second. My mind was clear, at ease again. However, something was about to happen that for my entire life I had not been able to explain. When I fall, I felt my body sag as deep, heavy sleep was draped across my body like a weighted blanket. I was at peace once again, but there's always a catch, isn't there? Remember that left arm I was propped up on? Yeah, I had forgotten about it too. Turns out, that left arm was the only thing keeping my body from slipping over the edge of the bed, preventing a heavy and sudden fall. And when I started to fall asleep, that arm gave away immediately. I felt my body begin to slide off the bed, panic gripping my chest. I realized that I couldn't move my body. I couldn't stop the fall from happening. Looking down, I saw the wooden block that I used to step onto the bed, and I realized my face was heading straight for it. I was convinced in my 6-year-old brain that I was about to crack my head open on the edge of that wooden block. I realized I was about to die. Note, clearly in hindsight, I might have been fine. The floor was carpeted, and the wooden block itself was lightweight and easy to move. More than likely, I was about to just get a nasty bruise, but the important thing is I genuinely felt like my life was in imminent danger. As my body rolled off the bed and I found myself staring helplessly at the ceiling, unable to even look at the floor, rushing up to my sudden and immediate doom, I remember thinking, begging, praying, please someone catch me, and they did. I felt immediately two hands cradle me gently, one behind my neck and another under my knees. I felt my body sag slowly into the arms of my savior, who then gently lowered me to the floor. The last thing I remember before I fell asleep, before my eyes closed finally, was an overwhelming sense of peace and well-being. I was so relieved I was saved. Then darkness as sleep overtook me. I remember sleeping so deeply, so soundly, that when I awoke, I felt fresh and new. Even in the haze of immediate wakefulness, I remember feeling blissfully peaceful. Then, with a shock, remembering the events that had just transpired, I immediately came to my senses and took stock of the situation. I was on the floor with my head resting upon that stepping stool like a makeshift pillow. I was in no pain, not a bruise, not even a scratch. I remember feeling shocked, but then immediately was filled with gratitude. I was saved. An angel came and caught me. I am a real Christian. I am a real Christian after all. We'll read this last. I'm struggling. This is a really long one. I was struggling. Let's just finish with this last paragraph. Years and years later, and now I'm 26 years old. Nearly 2 decades have passed since that event that forever changed me. Since my childhood, I fell into a more agnostic attitude, fell back into the Christian faith, then finding interest in Zen Buddhism through the beautiful lectures of Alan Watts, and Hinduism through the wonderful words of Ram Dass. I met my girlfriend, who was vaguely into crystals and various witchy things, and she helped me explore the world of the occult and what I would have considered blasphemous in my childhood. Ever since then, I've been on a spiritual quest, searching and reading through ancient texts, scriptures, and mythologies to try and piece together something, anything that makes sense. Yeah, looks like we're in the right place. Alright, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow night.